Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pick Up the Mic. Today, we are having a balance between mental health and music and the way that the two can collide in interesting ways. We've got a new guest speaker in, Vanessa, who we're going to go over to in a little bit and learn a little bit more about her and ask her some questions. And thank you for coming back, everyone. It's an honor that we can continue to provide you with content that you like. And thanks to all our Patreon members as well. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you so much. So yeah, please, Jeffrey.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Samuel. As always, amazing as ever. And yeah, we've come to a new episode. And, you know, Samuel is taking the lead on this. But it's interesting because we're bringing two areas that we've previously spoken about. We've spoken about, you know, creativity and the music industry, and we're lucky enough to have Joshua back again to be speaking about, you know, the music side of things. But we've also got Samuel here, who is, I guess, I'd like to say, mental health expert. And that, you know, the combination of both of them is basically our guest speaker, because our topic for today's episode is about music and mental health. And I think, like Samuel's saying, there is no better way to learn more about that topic than learning more about our speakers. So I'm officially going to hand over to Vanessa and just say, Vanessa, could you please introduce yourself to our audience? Just let them know a bit more about you and a bit more about the things that you do.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It feels like an honor, so thank you. And yeah, my name is Vanessa Maria, and I'm a DJ, a broadcaster, speaker, and a digital marketeer at Black Bottle Records for Sony. And I also work within the field of music and mental health, and bringing those two worlds together and pushing for a better, more equitable and healthier music industry for everyone involved, whether it's artists or people behind the scenes at labels. And most recently, I've been working with Resident Advisor on a project, which is a partnership project with Black Minds Matter, which started off as a podcast last year. And that's now branched out into a documentary series, which will be launching in, I think the first episode actually launched today, but there will be 3 or 4 videos filmed covering a certain topic within mental health, and different industry professionals will be interviewed for that. So watch out for pieces on like performance anxiety and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's perfect. And yeah, I guess for our listeners and watchers, keep an eye out for that. The links will definitely be in the description, so feel free to check those out as well.
Hello. So the first thing we wanted to, the first thing we were hoping you could tell us about is just a little bit about yourself, just like what you do, your life, on top of like your job, like everything. Just who are you? Who is Vanessa Maria?
First and foremost, I think I always say this, I'm like, I'm human. I'm because it's sometimes hard to get sucked into like titles, especially in the creative industry. Like, I'm a DJ, I'm this and that. You know what? I'm a human person. I'm just trying to find some balance, but also trying to do a couple things in my life that I care about. So a little bit about me. I actually started off working in mental health at the University of Bristol. So I studied psychology there, and I became a SAB officer within the realm of wellness. And then from that, I worked as a mental health rep at the SU and the university, and launched a documentary around Black students' mental health. So that was like the beginnings, and I really enjoyed that work. But I feel like I've always been creative, and I've always loved music, and I've always had like my ear or my foot in radio. So I learned how to DJ like during that time, and then things started to pick off because I just really loved it. And it was just something that came naturally to me, luckily, because we thank God for that. So yeah, from there I've just been playing like more sets, but I started off doing more like rap and like drill sort of nights. And now I'm playing club music and playing like Bali funk and South American club music like kuduro and hard drum and ballet, which I enjoy the most. And I just came back from Berlin, which was really sick, and I played one of like the Hall streams, which was amazing. And day to day, I'm working at a label in digital marketing. So currently working on Husk, some new Husk, which is, that's all I'm going to say because I don't think I can say more.
That's so exciting.
I think the whole UK is waiting for that one. So it's in the forefront of possibly one of the most anticipated projects of all time, maybe. I don't know. People on Twitter seem to be getting very aggy. And yeah, that's me. And then freelancing bits within music and mental health, working closely with Black Minds Matter, resident advisor.
It all sounds really cool. Like, that's so exciting. Oh my God, you do so much cool stuff. I really like that at the beginning you were like, I'm a human, because facts, that's so true. And I feel like we can just get so lost, like in whatever we do, I feel like people can just get lost in like what their job is and they forget like who they are. So I like that. That's a really good answer.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm also a fellow psychology student. I did work for the uni as more like a mental health rep as well, along with like other roles. But I didn't do a documentary, so I feel like properly done over. Like that is so cool, honestly. Yeah, I wish I had, but like well done with that. But I guess my question for you to explain to our audience is, what do you think of as mental health?
So what mental health means to me, or what is mental health?
I think more like, what does mental health mean like to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mental health to me it's everything, because without having a healthy mind, you really can't do anything. So it's like, for me, I see it as like the foundation of life, and just being able to navigate through the trials and tribulations that life might bring you, whether in your career, your personal, your love, your family life. Like, there's so many things that can throw you off balance. So for me, like, mental health is a foundation to navigate that in the best way that you possibly can. And it's definitely also a word which, like, it brings a lot of like triggering events and stuff to me, just because it's been something that I've struggled with a lot. So I see it almost like a timeline. When I think about mental health, I see it like a journey, because there's moments in my life where I feel like I'm on top of things and everything's great. I'm doing my 5 a.m. CEO runs, and there's times that I'm just in bed and I can't get out like at all, and I'm just crying and thinking, what am I doing with my life? So it's funny, because I feel like that word, or that phrase, has such a range of emotions attached to it for me, from being amazing and joyous to being actually like depressing and detrimental. So it just feels like something that encompasses life for me, and it's also something that I'm working hard to manage and become a master of, and just finding a routine that helps me to help myself and help others, because I think it's always like a learning process, and it's a process that always evolves with the more you know, and the more you know about yourself and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And as I get older, I feel like that's always shifting.
Yeah, nice. I completely agree as well. And I think one thing I did pick up on there was that you were saying like, it's the good experiences, it's the bad experiences, everything. A lot of people, they hear like mental health and they think, oh, it's all the negative. It's like, it's a disorder, it's a depression, it's anxiety, it's, but it's also the good things, the good thing, and I think that's like what mental health is like, it's like you're saying, it's a part of your entire life. It's your experience, it's your mental experience, which is pretty much everything. Like even your physical experience like impacts and interact with your mental experience. So like, it's literally just like the all-encompassing experience that you can't really see. Like, it's not tangible. It's like emotions, it's thoughts, it's feelings. And like what you were saying, like, yeah, sometimes you're on top of it. You're doing those like amazing runs, which I've been telling myself I'm going to do for the last like 3 months. I'm just like going to wake up early. I'm going to do the run. And then I'm just like, I wake up, I'm just like, nah, another half an hour in bed. And I'll be, I don't even have time for breakfast sometimes. But yeah, it's one of those things. But then also you were saying about like the complete opposite, like feeling like stuck in bed, feeling like there's no motivation to get out. Again, like that's part of this, like this struggle that you're saying that is your mental health battle. And I think that like everyone's got their like battle, and for some people it might be a really subtle one, it might be just very small things, for some people it's a lot, but I really respect that people like see it as their battle to face and like equip themselves with like the tools to like fight those kind of things. And like helping people do that, which you do, is like one of the best things that you can do for people, really. Like, you can give someone like food, you can give, like, if they've got like a cut, whatever, you can give them a bandage or whatever. But I mean, like, helping someone with their mental health, which you're doing with music, which you've done like around the uni, like, is honestly, it like changes people's lives in a way that they can't even see it themselves. Like, and I don't think anyone can see it. So, but yeah.
No, definitely. I agree with what you're saying. I think I just wanted to pick up on what you said about having battles and like different battles, and some people might be small and some people might be big. And I think one thing that definitely came up for me is that those battles definitely change as well. And you can start off with like small battles, and then something could happen. You get a phone call and you're faced with like a really big battle.
Yeah.
And that's often when people say like they didn't understand what mental health was until like they were faced with something like really traumatic, and they were like, oh, okay, like, you know, mental health is actually important. Because I think if you haven't really dealt with like a huge hardship or adversity for a long period of time, or like for in the beginning of your life or something like that, then maybe it's something that you don't really think about until you face something like quite difficult. And those things are always changing. So I think I'm just making that point just because, I think it's okay to have those moments, because we will all experience them at one point or another. So
it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay, girl. You know, let's talk about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get ashamed of it as well. They think like, I'm weak, I'm whatever because I'm going through this. But like, some of literally the strongest people, like celebrities out there that have like done so much stuff that you see as like a role model, like they come out as like going through these mental health difficulties, and progressively more now that it's becoming more acceptable. But it's not like a sign of weakness. It's almost like if you get run over by a car, you weak person. No, it doesn't work like that. Like, it's the same thing.
How dare you?
How dare you get run over?
Break your legs. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's definitely one of those things. And it's great that people are starting to have more open, honest discussions around it, because it does make a difference. It really does. And you just feel like it's just about feeling like less alone and finding that community and sense of belonging, which helps you to then open up a little bit more and address what's happening, instead of just, you know, maybe like repressing feelings, or just not being honest with what's actually happening, and accepting that maybe, do you need some form of help in whatever that form of help looks like. So it's great that things are shifting.
It's a journey indeed.
100%. And I think it's really key because that links into our Mich Check section. So if anyone who's new, that's where we put interesting facts and figures. And they seem to be our favorite organization at this point, because we've mentioned them so many times. But I do really love the work that they do, and that is Mind, or Mind UK as they're sometimes known. And they released this article back in a while ago, almost 11 years ago, where they were talking about how researchers found that music can, be good for your mental health. And they were saying that researchers found that music can help to release dopamine, which is the feel-good chemical in your brain. And when, they did different studies and research experiments, and they said that dopamine was up to 9% higher when volunteers listened to music that they enjoyed. Now, they said, obviously, this might seem like an obvious thing. If you listen to music you don't like, chances are it's probably not going to make you feel better. But they were saying that, listening to music that you like, especially, I think, like we were saying, like through tough times, can be really good. Like Samuel was raising the idea of, individuals going, you're not the only individuals who's gone through this before, whether that's, you look at celebrities who have gone through similar things, or whether that's family members or friends. It is sometimes good to hear, and I guess hear, music of support. We raised this in our previous episode, but they were saying that when it comes to like gaming music, especially, or instrumental music in general, it's really good, because they said specifically with gaming, so I won't include all instrumental music, but they were saying with gaming music, it's designed for that concentration. It's not supposed to distract you. It's not supposed to get you off the task. It's supposed to make you feel pumped. If you're playing something like, I don't know, a racing game, and you're hearing a certain song, it's supposed to make you want to win the race. If you're playing a fighting game, it's supposed to encourage you to beat the other player. If it's FIFA, it's supposed to encourage you to, get into the football atmosphere. So I think that's a clear thing of learning about like why, the benefits that music can have as well. And yes, also before we go on to the next question, I'm glad that everyone has agreed that our morning runs have sort of like stopped, because I thought I was the only one, but I'm glad to know it's not just me, and that others are going through the same thing. So I'm very happy for that.
Very quickly with
go ahead.
That, like, comment you just said, but I was just thinking, just like someone like Logic, and you remember that, I can't remember the name of the song, is it 0800?
Yes, I know the song you're talking about.
Yeah, and like, just think about the impact that can have on people. Like, they listen to that and they can feel like they've got so much hope afterwards, like after going through like a really difficult time. And I know I work in a mental health hospital, and a lot of the patients, if they're like really struggling, they listen to music. They've got like a playlist that will like almost like put them back together and like give them that strength, and you can really see the difference before and afterwards. So it's just like, musicians do have a big impact. But anyway, I'm probably stealing what's going to be said next, so I'm going to let you guys go on to the next.
No, that's so true. And I think, like you were saying, that it's that sense of, I don't know, whether it's, like a musician's poured their heart into it and they're saying that this is, what they've been through. Like, if people didn't know that, I don't know, they went through like, if they're a woman and they had a miscarriage, or if they're a man and they had a really tough heartbreak, we've said in previous episodes that creative stuff allows us to pour out our hearts into it, and I think, like you were saying, it's really good because we then get to connect with the individual, even if it's like ourselves. Like, I'm not necessarily limiting it to just music, but whether you want to create poetry or art or whatever it could be, you're pouring your expression into that.
One of the things that all of us have said, which is really good, is that the fact that celebrities and leaders now talk about their mental health. Because before, it was as if you've got this person like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, you've got Pele, great people, you've got Mary Seacole, you've got Aretha Franklin, people who are high in the community, but you wouldn't hear about the stress they went through with the fame that they had, or the self-doubt that they had, or potential depressions that they have. And I think one of the things I really did like about athletes at the 2022 Olympics was that they actually spoke about their mental health. They spoke about how they were affected from the Olympics being delayed or not being able to go to the Olympics, or the fact that some of them would win a gold medal, but then have to realize, okay, then I now have to find a way to fund me because now the UK government's taken my funding. And I think it's really actually helped the public to see that, okay, even the people that we hold up on a pedestal, even the great people that we see, they also have mental health issues. They also suffer from depression. They also suffer from self-doubt, and it actually helps to normalize it for the public. And I think that's one of the good things that we're seeing in present day.
Definitely. I think that's true. And I think that, like you were saying, especially like when it comes to history, that the idea of like people in the past, even like to this day, people see whether it's like billionaires or actors, and we're just like, hey, they didn't struggle. In our previous episode, we mentioned it that, someone we also love talking about on the show is Trevor Noah. And Trevor Noah was saying on this episode of a podcast he was on that Kevin Hart runs, he was saying that like when he started The Daily Show, he couldn't get anyone. Like he was like messaging all these like celebrities around the world to just be like, hey, I want you to be my first guest on the show. I really love you to be on the show. And they just never got back to him. And he said that the reason why he always respects Kevin Hart is because Kevin Hart was the first one to do that. And I think that that's one of the things that we can always relate to, that whether it's, similar to us on the podcast, or whether it's similar to musicians or actors, trying to, get your name out there and everyone's just saying no, it's definitely something that we all can relate to on a personal level. So I think that's definitely a good point. But I guess moving on to our next question. Now, I mentioned it before, the documentary. Now, the documentary is titled When Wellbeing is White, The Mental Health of Black Students. And as I mentioned, I watched the documentary and the links will be below. So if you want to check it out, you're more than welcome to. But this documentary was very interesting. Now, of course, I don't go to Bristol University, and we're going to learn more about the documentary and what inspired Vanessa to do it. But there was a lot of interesting points raised there, which I think that, I guess I just want to say from the get-go that on a university-wide level, even an education system-wide level, that should be taken into account and considered. So all of that considered, Vanessa, we just want to know what inspired you to do this documentary. What motivated you to say, hey, I found that there's this issue at my university and I want to document it. and I want to, let the world know about it?
I think first I should probably give some context for people if they don't know about the University of Bristol. I'm not sure about numbers at the moment, but when I was at uni, I joined 2016, and graduated in 2018. I can't believe I remember that. It is an extremely so basically the university is made up of mostly privately educated students, mostly white and mostly upper middle class, and they have the smallest at the time when I joined, they had the smallest amount of state schooled educated students as opposed to privately educated students in the country, and that was more so than Oxford and Cambridge. So the culture was for me was shocking because I grew up in Tower Hamlets in Stepney Green, and I actually didn't know. I understood the concept of a boarding school, but I didn't actually know that they still existed. I know it sounds weird, but I thought that it was something quite archaic. I was just oh, that was something like the 1900s. Little did I know. And so when I went to university, I was oh snap! This is this is a different world that I'm entering right now. And I remember people were asking me where did you board? And I was what, surfboard? Are we Beyonce fans? What's going on? No, that was not the reference. And I was definitely alienated, very alienated. I was one of only, I think, 2 Black people in my course out of 350 students, which was typical across different subjects. And just I felt hyper invisible, to be clear. So I was very visible. Obviously, I stood out in terms of my skin color, but I felt very invisible in terms of my voice and representation, and just feeling my experience was understood. So I was struggling. I was very depressed, and I felt very lost, and I'd never really understood why. And I was I feel so isolated all the time. I feel it's finding it hard to make friends, and that kind of thing. And I was what is it? And I was oh, maybe it's because I'm Black. I don't know. But it took a while for me to get there, maybe third year. And then I was talking to all the kind of Black students, and I was how are you enjoying university? And it was interesting because everyone was absolutely not. I'm hating my experience. And I was damn, what is going on here? And we would have a little communion sort of area in this library, and we'd all kind of go there and just share about how depressed and how upset we were. And it sounds really sad, but it was quite depressing, to be honest. But it helped a little bit. It did help because we all found communion there. And I think from being in that space, from talking to everyone and hearing how difficult it was, I was we need to address this, and we need to actually do something about it, and make it more public, and capture our experiences in a more formal way, which we can take to the university, because there's been obviously reports being written and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't making the change that I felt needed to be made at the time. It was quite slow, and people were suicidal, and it was a case of saving people's lives at this point. So I felt it was needed. So yeah, that's basically where the motivation came from really bad experiences, a little bit of trauma, shared trauma, and just feeling I needed to do something with my voice, and being a SAB at the time as well. So I had this idea for ages, but then it wasn't until I was a sabbatical officer where I had access to funds and grants that I was cool, let me just make this happen for the sake of our community.
Wow, that's so great. And I think Michelle, I think you want to mention something about the Tower Hamlets connection.
So I had a couple of things to say to that. First of all, I got so excited when you said Stepney Green, because I'm currently living in Stepney Green. So I was Wee!
Oh, you're in Ends, yeah.
Yeah, so I was oh my God, yeah, so excited.
Oh, maybe you don't want to say that on here.
I'll tell you after. But yeah, so that was really exciting. But also, I was going to mention, I know you were saying about like when you were at school and you were like, oh, who's boarding school? And like, you know, I'm the only like Black person here. And so basically I had to go to boarding school because the way that like things worked out, like, because my parents live in Saudi Arabia and like the school that I was going to, you had to go to boarding school. It was like this whole thing. But anyways, I ended up having to go to boarding school in like this, and I ended up going in the south of England, which is literally like Taunton, like this, like the widest town you could possibly find. And I completely understand what you mean. I mean, I know it's different because it was like high school, so it was probably, I don't know, different in a way, but like when I went to that school, I was the darkest person at that school. Like, and it was literally like people, like I'm like, you can't really see, but I'm not that dark. Like I'm not white, and I'm very aware of that. But I was literally the darkest person there, and it was like me, and then my brother, and my brother's white passing. So it was like, and my brother only came after. And literally when I was there, like it was just such a weird experience because I was so used to living around people and being with people who were from like, you know, all over the place. So it was just weird to me that like people considered me weird, and it wasn't like they considered me weird, and it wasn't like they made it that obvious. But I feel like a lot of the things that I experienced, I didn't realize were that bad at the time. And I just kind of thought like, oh, maybe people don't like me. Like, and I thought that was it. But it's really weird being like, I completely understand the whole being the only darker person around. Like, it's just a weird feeling. And especially when they've all went to prep school, because you know what they're like. And it's just, yeah, like I completely understand. So I'm sorry you went through that, but I get you.
So my friends at uni were really were a mixed bag as well, because I had friends that went to private school and were state educated or whatnot, and they were saying the same things. They were like, "Oh my gosh, it was a crazy experience being in those like institutions." I think the lack of like diversity was what was really, they said it was so strange, because a lot of I think all of my friends that went to private school were from London, but they maybe went to like the home counties to be educated, and obviously being from like a multicultural city, it was already like, this is kind of strange. So that was always interesting to me. But yeah, I feel like when it comes to like a university setting where obviously you have people from all different walks of life, and you have different types of cultures, and when people are often only used to being from one culture and not necessarily mixing or being exposed to other people's like walks of life, like often there can be a lot of ignorance, and in my case, I felt like there was a lot of racism, microaggressions happening, because people just like, it was shocking to them that there was something different, because they're just used to everyone being so the same. And I was like, and as you were saying, it's so weird that everyone was so the same. I was like, wait, what? Wow.
Really?
I was like, what is crazy? Because back home, like, my friend was from Bangladesh, then from Morocco, then my mate was from Nigeria, Uganda, Thailand, like.
Exactly. Like, you had so many different places that like, it's just, it's so odd to me to think that people only know the people.
Yeah.
Like them? I don't know.
I think the oddest thing was like the reception to difference as well, because I was like, okay, like, you know what, you can't, it's not in your control that was the case. But a lot of the time the reception to difference was like quite like negative or hostile, and I was like,
exactly, it's like they've never had to deal with someone different before, and like all they have is negative thoughts about it, which I just also found weird. I was like, you know, we're all kind of different. Like, that shouldn't be like, I'm not the weird one. Like, I'm not acting like, I've done everything in my power to be like as nice as I can to you and like try and fit in. And you're still like, you know what I mean? Like,
put things into perspective as well. One of my best friends, Joel, who I live with actually, I lived with him in university, and yeah, we connected there. He is from Leeds, and he's like, I guess, your typical like white guy from Leeds, like working class. But the thing that was so funny was that he related to a lot of the things I was saying about university, and the only way he related to it was his accent. So people would completely ridicule him. Like, it was really bad, to the point where sometimes when I'd be walking with him, and we would bump into people, and he'd be like, "Yeah, you're right," and they'd be like, "Oh, you're right, you're right."
Oh, God.
I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
Oh my God.
And yeah, people would just completely take the piss, like push him out of like projects. Obviously,
For his accent? Are you kidding me?
can you imagine if you actually were like look physically different too?
Yeah.
It was a lot. He was like, even I can't fit in, and I look like
even me.
and I was like, shit. Then.
Damn, that's so bad.
Yeah, no,
I'm so glad you like did what you could.
And to like both of your points, I think some of the issues are that some people just don't like change, don't like things that are different. And I think one of the things I've found, like working in London, going to university outside of London, out in Kent, is that you do have people who have just like been in their area their whole life. So like I've got like people I've met who are from like North London. I'm like, oh yes, I'm just going to Vauxhall. Where's Vauxhall? Is that outside of London? I was like, no, it's literally 5 minutes from Victoria. And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'm like, it's literally, there's Vauxhall Bridge that leads straight from Pimlico, Victoria. I'm like, oh yeah, so that's what it's called. And I think sometimes it's also on them to try and like come out of their box and actually to think about other cultures. Because I think one of the good things I've really loved about London is that, to your point, Vanessa, I have friends who are from Sri Lanka, from Nepal, from Poland, from all over the world. I've picked up different words from my friends, from my colleagues, from all the different places. And like even like my Italian friends have told me places that they've enjoyed in Milan. And then when I've gone there on holiday, I've been able to go to those places and experience it. And I think it's not like Michelle or Vanessa, your fault. It's more on them, that the fact they're not open to different cultures. Because I think one of the things that we have to be, especially those from an ethnic minority, is that we need to be open to another culture which isn't the culture that we grow up in with our parents. But it's like some people are reluctant to then open up to our cultures as well. And even to your friend from Leeds, it's literally that he has a separate culture for being from Leeds. And it's just that them ridiculing him is basically saying that you're different to us and we don't consider you as being equal to us, which I think is kind of sad.
No, definitely. That's it.
It's honestly crazy.
Yeah, and I think that it's just that understanding of like Joshua was saying, of everyone is different and we need to just celebrate each other's differences. Whether that's with language or with food. I know, especially like for me at school, like one of the things that was nice was when you would have like certain days where like there would be, I don't know, like you'd have like a specific type of food. So I know it's not like the most monumental thing that schools can do to, tackle differences, but it is a good thing to like learn more about other cultures. And I know like my school did have like days focused on like international days. So I know like, for example, I went to school, if I have the picture, hopefully it will appear, of when I went to school, like traditional Nigerian clothes, specifically for Yoruba, because I'm from that tribe. So specific like clothes from my culture. And I know like one of the things that like shocked all my classmates, where they were just like, I've never seen something like this before. And I was like they were just like, oh, this is amazing. I was like this is just like, this isn't even like, the best of the best. This is just like what we wear if like we're going around. So yeah, I think it's just that, like just understanding and celebrating all these differences.
Yeah, like foods and clothing and like music and stuff is where like everyone can like relate about a culture, and like it's where all the differences are, but it's where all the fun is as well. And I think like they're losing out, if people are just like instantly block it out, they're losing out on like a spice of life and the many, many spices of life, which is really sad. And I think from there, it's people that like laugh at sort of like, they see another culture and they're like, they have that like reaction where they're just like, oh, let's ridicule it because we don't understand it. It's not everyone, but I know some people do that. And I think that's just like, they're the ones losing out, but it's also, they're making things pretty horrible. So it's it's not something that's really forgivable. But it like you're saying, like if you just bring in that acceptance, you want to know about other people's like cultures, experience them. Like that is one of the funnest things you can do whilst you're alive. That like adds to your experiences that you wouldn't like 100, 200 years ago wouldn't have been possible like ever. Like maybe if you were like along a trade route somewhere, like you might have different cultures coming in, but that's literally it. So like I think that it's an amazing gift that we're able to like all share in each other's cultures and accept everyone and like learn that little language, like you're saying, Joshua. Like I do that with my friends all the time. I'm like at work, like there's so many different people from like all over Eastern Europe, different countries in like Africa and like everywhere. And I just want to learn like hello, good morning, things like that. And then it just makes everyone like, it brightens up people's day. Like if you can just do that little thing, because someone's learned like you're saying, you've learned an entire other culture, another language, another way of doing that. Like just the small things just shows that you actually like care and it makes people feel welcome. Like if you say like hello when you greet someone in their language or in the language of that their ancestors have used, like it's actually saying like I accept it and we value it, and I think that's something that everyone can do. It doesn't cost anything. But yeah.
No, it's true.
You're right. Oh, sorry. Can I?
No. Go ahead.
No, Sam, I completely agree with like everything you're saying, and I just wanted to say because like we are considering like where we are in the world, and everything, like we are genuinely so lucky to like be surrounded by other cultures, and being able to learn from them is like just so amazing. And like I have a friend who like went to school in Canada. Anyway, she her school used to have this like thing where TED Talk would come, and then like they would give TED Talks, but then sometimes like the students could give one. And my friend did one. And it's just really cool. And she was literally talking about that, like the fact that we have so many cultures around, and the fact that, you know, obviously everybody wants to travel and everybody wants to learn about new cultures, but like you don't even have to travel. You know what I mean? Like you could go knock on someone's door and be like, I want to learn about you. Like I'm interested. And it's so much more valuable, and it brings so much more to your life to just like accept and be open to like, what do other people do when they're in these situations, or when they're from here, or when they're from there? Like, and it's just so nice, and it's so cool and amazing. And I just like not appreciating that is just entirely like a loss. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not like, oh, we're just so lucky, and we should take it to our advantage.
No, definitely.
Stop being bad.
No, definitely, it's true. And I think that even like what I was going to say was, I know even linking to what both of you are saying, like my dad's is a bit of a language buff. I like it must. I don't know if it's part of me and my siblings yet. We're still learning our languages, but my dad like loves languages, and one of the things that he always does is, whether it's like someone that he knows like not too well, or someone that you know he might know a bit, or that he's good friends with, is whenever he sends like happy birthday to them, if they speak another language, he tries to like, you know, he'll greet them in the language. He might not necessarily get the pronunciation like correct, but he'll still try. If it's a WhatsApp message, then he'll just like WhatsApp the message in like Spanish or Italian. And I think that that's one of the things that like is a simple thing. And like you were saying, I know that the thing that he said he finds funniest, especially when he travels to Nigeria, is he can speak a lot of the different languages within Nigeria. And he was saying that like one of the funniest things to do is like whenever, I don't know, whether it's someone at the airport, you know, who's an airport staff member, or whether it's, you know, you go and you're traveling around and maybe you just meet someone. So one of the funniest things is when people don't think you speak the language, he said like the way that they can treat you is different. And then he says like whenever that happens, you know, he doesn't immediately pop up speaking their language. He'll stay silent, you know, see what they say. And then sometimes he's just like, it's really interesting because I guess that shows you like the true version of the person, and you're learning more about the culture itself. So he said like sometimes when he comes out and he speaks it, like this one person just, it was like his mind was like blown. He was like what? Like what? You speak the language? And he was just like, yeah, you know, I speak it really well. And he was just like, no, you don't. And then my dad had like a full conversation with him. So yeah, I think it's just having these conversations, like taking those simple steps. You don't need to, you know, learn the language in one day or learn the culture the whole day. But even if it's like, I know, like me and my sister, you know, we didn't succeed at this when we traveled to Tenerife, but like one of the things that we're hoping to do, especially in this new year and things looking like it should be better with travel, is to like, wherever we're planning to go to somewhere within Spain or Tenerife again, and we want to try and speak the language like to the people, as much as we can. Like, I've been doing my Duolingo lessons. I've said it before. I am not the best at Duolingo, but it's coming. I'm hoping I can do a conversation. And even if I can't speak like the whole language, even if it's just saying like, a simple introduction, things like that is what I'm now aiming for. And that might be something that people listening might be like, hey, that's something I can do when I travel as well. So yeah.
Big up Duolingo though.
Yeah, big up Duolingo.
We now know how to say my cat is eating bread in so many languages.
No, that's so true.
I need to get back on that horse.
Oh no, honestly, it's been good, and it is I guess it can be our honorary shout out, because yeah, it really is good at just setting aside, like, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour to just learn the language. But yeah, I'm now going to hand over to Joshua, our wonderful guest host, and our first guest host joining us for an episode, to ask the next question.